My name is Lucia. I'm 52 years old. I live alone in a modest house, one of those with the smell of brewed coffee and silence in the hallways. Life never gave me luxury, but I always gave everything I could to my son. He was my reason, my priority, my mirror. And for many years, he was also my company. Raising him alone was a constant battle. His father disappeared before the first diaper change. I had to learn the hard way how to be both roles in one. I was the one teaching math, attending school meetings, calming his nightmares. I spent nights awake studying with him, helping with science homework, pretending to understand physics when all I really wanted was for him not to feel alone. And when he finally passed the entrance exam for the federal university, I cried in secret in the bathroom. It was pride, it was relief, it was a silent mourning. I was losing my boy to the world. But it was for a good cause. He went. He grew up. He lived away for 4 years. And came back. Or rather, he came back different. He no longer kissed me on the cheek like before. He no longer sat at the table to talk. He spent more time on his phone, locked in his old room, than with me in the kitchen. I responded with what I always knew how to do: love. Good food, attention, timid attempts at conversation. But he only seemed irritated, as if my presence was a miscalculation in his new life. Until that Tuesday when the blow came dry. I had made chicken with potatoes. The smell filled the entire house. It was his favorite dish, or at least it was, before college taught him to despise everything that was simple. I set the utensils on the table, arranged 2 plates, and filled the glasses with cold passion fruit juice. When he entered the kitchen, he didn't even look at me. "Is it ready?" he asked, looking at his phone. "Yes, I just finished." He sat down, stirred the food with his fork half-heartedly. "You know you could be doing more than this, right?" "More than what?" "This. Cooking, the house. I don't know, living. You don't do anything. You just stay here sitting." I stayed silent. He didn't stop. "Mom, you need to do something with your life. You've become useless." There it was. The word was spoken. Useless. Didn't come as a joke. It wasn't ironic. Came straight like an arrow aimed at my chest. I didn't respond. I stayed there with my hands still resting on the tablecloth. His plate untouched. The juice starting to sweat in the glass. And my soul wilting like a flower forgotten in the sun. He stood up and left as if he had just talked about the weather. I heard the door to his room slam. The sound echoed through the house like a sentence. That night, I didn't have dinner. I went to my room without saying anything. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, my eyes wide open, fixed. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I remembered the nights he used to wake me up, scared of thunderstorms. I would do my superhero voice, telling him nothing would happen while Mommy was around. I remembered when he cut his chin skateboarding and I ran with him in my arms to the emergency room. I remembered when he spent days studying for the ENM exam, and I sat beside him in silence just to keep him company. All of this, and now I was useless? I didn't sleep. Not that night. I spent the hours listening to the ticking of the clock, the distant sound of a car passing on the street. My body was exhausted, but my mind was racing. I relived every moment, every choice, every sacrifice. It was there, lying in the loudest loneliness of my life, that I felt something break. But at the same time, something moved. It wasn't anger. It was a kind of revelation. My son was no longer that little boy who used to ask me to hold him. He was an adult, hurt, perhaps confused, yes, but an adult. And I had erased myself so he could shine, that I had forgotten about myself. And ironically, his insult made me see a question I had been avoiding for years. Who am I besides a mother? In the dark of the room, still lying there, I murmured the answer I had never had the courage to say out loud. I am someone. I just forgot how to show it. The next morning, when he left again, throwing his backpack over his shoulder without looking at me, I stood in front of his room door. I looked at the mess, the crooked mattress, the wall with faded posters, the pile of dirty clothes. And I thought, maybe it's time to do something for myself. Something useful. Something new. And in that instant, a nearly childlike sparkle appeared inside me. A flash of freedom. That morning, something in me was no longer the same. I got up more slowly, but with a restless mind. While preparing the coffee, I realized that I no longer felt that knot in my throat that had been with me for years. Maybe I was still hurt, yes. But now something new was growing, an idea, a rage turned into impulse. A nearly adolescent desire to prove something. When he left, without saying goodbye, I put on my oldest cleaning clothes and went to his room. I stopped at the door. I looked for a few seconds as if contemplating ruins, the walls dirty with tape, the shelf overflowing with college books he no longer read, the bed with the mattress sagging in the middle. It was a temple of abandonment. And it was mine now. I took a deep breath. I entered. I started by removing the bedsheet, then the clothes scattered on the floor. I gathered up tangled socks, empty food wrappers, remnants of a life lived without care. At the back of the closet I found a toy car. Red, made of metal. It was like finding a fossil. I sat on the floor with it in my hands, and for a few minutes I let the memory flood in. My 5-year-old boy running down the hallway with that same car, making motor noises with his mouth. I closed my eyes. Smiled. Cried. Then I stood up. Cleaning turned into a renovation. I turned on the radio, opened the windows, and began changing everything. I painted the walls a light beige. Took down the old posters, put up simple paintings I found at the municipal market. One of them said, "You are exactly where you should be." I found an old lampshade, fixed the cover. Sewed a new quilt with fabrics I had been keeping for years and had almost forgotten. I washed the curtains. Bought handmade soaps in little jars with lavender sachets. And maybe for the first time in a long time I felt useful. But useful to myself. That evening, I sat on the couch with my laptop on my lap. I opened the browser, searched how to rent a room on Airbnb. I watched tutorials, read blogs from beginner hosts, created an account. I wrote a simple and true description. Cozy, quiet suite, perfect for resting. Breakfast included. Friendly and discreet hostess. I posted the photos I had taken with my phone. I was trembling inside, as if I were exposing myself too much. But deep down I knew this was more than an ad. It was a declaration of independence. 2 days later, I received the first notification, reservation confirmed. It was a guy from Bahia, a photographer coming for a conference in the city. He would arrive on Friday. I felt my heart race. I went out and bought whole wheat bread, fruits, rosemary plants. I left a bottle of water and a welcome note on the nightstand. "Welcome, I hope you feel at home." On Friday night, he arrived. A light smile, a backpack on his back, and tired eyes. He was enchanted with the room. He said it smelled like his grandmother's house. He smiled when he saw the note. He called me the kindest hostess he had ever met. And right there in that small hallway, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Admiration. Not as a mother, not as a caretaker. As a woman. As someone who is seen. On Sunday, he left and left a note too. "Thank you for all the kindness. Here I found peace. I hope you know how much that means." I kept it with the red car. The following week, I received a Uruguayan architect. Then a couple from the countryside. And so the room became not just a place, but a symbol. A part of me that I was rebuilding guest after guest. Meanwhile, my son remained distant. He still slept on the couch. Still avoided eye contact. But something in his silence began to change. He saw the guests coming, leaving happy. He saw the compliments on the fridge, the notes, the laughter echoing in the mornings. On a random Sunday, he asked me, almost without looking at me, "Are you making good money with this?" Enough to remind me that I still have value. He didn't answer. But he shook his head as if starting to realize something, as if seeing for the first time the mother who had always been there, but with new eyes. And me? I slept better. I ate with more appetite. I started wearing earrings again. I began planning a vegetable garden in the backyard. Because deep down, it wasn't just his room I was renovating. It was my soul, my presence in the world. And it was just the beginning. Took him almost a week to realize. Or maybe he had already realized from the beginning, but only reacted when he saw what used to be his territory turn into a new world, a world where he was no longer the center. That day, I was receiving a new guest, Mrs. Marlene, a retired teacher who traveled the country alone, collecting stories. She arrived with a red suitcase, a broad smile, and an infectious curiosity. As I was showing her the room, he walked in through the living room door and saw the scene, a stranger opening the suitcase where his past used to sleep. He stopped, stood still. After she locked herself in the room, he called me to the kitchen. "Mom, what's going on here?" "I'm working." "You became a hotelier now?" "Not a hotelier. A hostess." Silence. "And my room?" "Your room is now a suite. It's on Airbnb." He nervously laughed. "You turned my room into a little hotel?" "I turned it into freedom." He went silent, swallowed the response. He went to the couch and stayed there, staring at the ceiling as if he expected the words to take back. But they didn't. From that day on, we lived under the same roof like two seasons of the year that don't mix. Me taking care of the guests, him immersed in headphones. He didn't talk to me, but he didn't leave the house either. He stayed there, eating when no one was in the kitchen, sleeping on the couch with a thin blanket that left his foot sticking out. It was strange to see him like that, uncomfortable, lost, but part of me understood. He didn't know where he belonged anymore. And I didn't know what to say. In the third week, the inevitable happened. One of the guests, a very friendly Argentine musician, saw me at breakfast and asked, "That guy on the couch, is he your husband?" I almost spit out my coffee. "My son," I replied, laughing so much that tears came without permission. The musician laughed too. But my son heard. That night, I found a folded note on the table. Quick handwriting, a little shaky. "Sorry. I said that the other day because I'm lost. I thought you were my safety, but you also had the right to change. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself. I don't know who I am outside of here. And maybe I'm jealous of you who are discovering this now." I read the note 3 times. I didn't cry, but I felt a hug inside. A touch of humanity coming from him, finally. The next morning, I made tapioca with cheese and black coffee just the way he liked it. I left it on the little table by the couch without saying anything. When he woke up and saw it, he looked me in the eyes for a few seconds and simply said, "Thank you, Mom." It was little, but it was everything. The next week, he started looking at the guests with more curiosity. He asked once how the website worked. Another time, he helped me carry the bags of an elderly woman who arrived late at night. One day, when I walked into the living room, he was reading the reviews of the suite on his phone. Guests praising my kindness, the cleanliness, the care. He looked at me, a little embarrassed, and said, "People like you. I like myself too. I'm learning." And he smiled. That little smile he used to give when he was a child and was hiding something good. That night, before going to sleep, he said from the door of my room, "Maybe I need to leave here soon, huh?" "You need to find your space, son. But take your time. The couch is yours as long as you need it." He nodded, went to sleep, and I stayed there, staring at the ceiling, smiling. Maybe reconciliation wouldn't come like in the movies, with hugs and tears. But it came like this, little by little. In a plate of food. In a shy note. In a scattered sentence. And, more importantly, it came from a sincere place. He was coming back. And so was I. Autumn arrived with its calm winds and yellowed leaves falling through the yard. It was as if nature itself was saying that it was okay to let the old fall, so that the new could grow. My house now smelled of lavender and cornmeal cake. The remodeled room had already hosted travelers from Bahia, Uruguay, Acre, and the interior of Minas. Each one left a little of themselves, a note, a story, a look of gratitude. And I left a little of myself too. As if, little by little, I was being rewritten by these temporary presences. My son no longer slept on the couch every night. He landed an internship at a small production company with a modest salary but one that gave him some direction. Sometimes he'd spend 2 or 3 days away. Other times he'd come back for dinner. Gradually, the silence between us turned into hallway conversations, then small dialogues at breakfast, and finally laughter. One Sunday night, he asked me out for dinner. I was surprised. I fixed my hair, put on some subtle lipstick, and wore the floral blouse he had given me years ago. It still fit, a little looser now, but with the same memory trapped in the seams. We went to a small pizzeria. We ordered half calabresa, half quattro formaggi. He had juice. I had a glass of wine. We talked about trivial things, the traffic, the new neighbor, the guest who snored like a tractor. Then he fell silent for a while, fiddling with the edge of the paper napkin. "Mom, I was really hard on you, wasn't I?" I looked at him. Those brown eyes, so similar to mine, now had less anger and more regret. I nodded. "Yes, but I was hard on myself for many years too. You just verbalized a pain I had already been carrying." He lowered his head. "I didn't want to hurt you. I swear. I was frustrated. Lost. And you were always my safe harbor. When I realized the harbor was turning into a ship, I freaked out." I smiled gently. "Son, one day you'll understand that we can't be a harbor forever. Sometimes we need to become a boat and sail too." He looked at me with silent admiration. Kind that comes when we realize one of our heroes has aged but still carries power. "Are you happy, Mom?" I paused. Thought. Felt. I am. And not because everything is fixed, but because, for the first time, I'm not waiting for someone to rescue me. I am enough. And knowing that is immense freedom. He smiled. For real this time. A wide, clear smile, one I hadn't seen in years. We paid the bill, walked together to the car. On the way, he talked about plans. He said he wanted to save money to share an apartment with a friend. He was thinking about starting a video channel about music and cinema. He was reading more. "I've learned a lot watching you start over. I swear." I gave him a light tap on the shoulder, laughing. "So the useless mom turned into a self-help coach?" He laughed too. The useless mom turned into an example. And I felt my heart settling back into my chest in a new place. Not the old one, not the one where everything depended on me, but in a fairer space where I could love without losing myself. In the following weeks, he came less and less, and it didn't hurt anymore. It was as it should be. One day, when I came back from a walk, I found an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, there was a key with a guitar keychain and a note. "I moved today. But this house will always be my home. Thank you for everything. And sorry again. I love you." I sat on the couch, pressed the key in my hand, and closed my eyes. I felt the weight of longing, but also the warmth of a mission fulfilled. I turned on my phone. Then the Airbnb app. A new reservation, a couple from the south coming for a conference. I replied with a smile on my face. "It will be a pleasure to host you. The house is simple but full of love." And it was true. My house had become mine again. My son had found the world. And I had found myself.